Please rise. Please be seated.
Adonai Elohim lo exal bin hor deshem yarbitzeini al mei menuchot ינעלני נפשי ישובר ינחני במגלי צדק ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו גם כי אלך וגצה למוות לא יירא רע כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי נשענת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב החסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי כל ימי חיי בשבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים אדוני רואי לא אגזר אדוני רואי לא אגזר.
Yossi Biederman, Joseph Biederman, experienced a lot of pain in his life. He was born Czechoslovakia, Prague, to Holocaust survivors who were saved by Schindler, moved at 9 months to Argentina. He grew up in Argentina with the ghost of loved ones lost, surrounded by Nazis who had fled. He moved to Israel and completed his medical training and fell in love, only for his beloved wife Sylvia Silberberg to pass away just a little over 6 years after their wedding, leaving him a single father of their beloved Itai. Loss struck again when his beloved nephew, Ilan, passed away at the tender age of 30, when his beloved niece's partner, John, passed away. With so much loss, it would have been easy to give in to that pain, to give in to the sorrow, the generational trauma. What wasn't? But Yossi had a superpower. He was a transformer. He took all that pain, he took all that dislocation, he took all that trauma, and he used it as fuel to motivate his work in the world. He became a top-notch psychiatrist, psychopharmacologist. He invented an entire field to support children and adolescents. He dedicated his life to seeing those most vulnerable, those most in need, to healing, to helping, to comforting. And he wasn't just a brilliant professional, not just a brilliant doctor. He managed to be fully present in the world and beyond present at home, deeply present for his incredible family, for his beloved wife, Helen, for his amazing children, Itai, Daniela, and Ari, for Seth and for Tracy, for Yael, for everyone in his family. He was not just an amazing professional, he was a dear friend. He was the person you could depend on. And so today we tell his story. We tell the story of how this man transformed what could have been a life of sorrow into a life of support, into a life of healing, into a life of transformation. We honor his legacy and we take on his challenge to be transformers in our own right. Our first speaker will be his beloved twin brother, Leon.
It's better if you go that way. Okay.
I'm Leon. I'm Joseph's twin brother. In that capacity, I'm the one who has known him the longest. In fact, I knew him even before our parents did. Losing a person who we love is always a big loss. Losing a twin brother with whom I've been close all my life is losing a part of me forever. I will no longer be able to chat and share with my brother as we did almost every week. We no longer hear about his multiple professional accomplishments and be proud of him. He will not be able to tell me about his grandchildren. We will no longer be able to plan a vacation together. I still have the memories. Our relationship will be different. When I'll speak with him, I can only hope he will hear me. I know, however, one thing for sure, that I will miss him dearly for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon, for those beautiful words. Our next speakers will be his immediate family children, Daniela, Ari, Helen, and Itai. So I'm going to speak on behalf of a few people. On behalf of my mom, thank you everyone for coming. And this is what Itai put together. At 4.5 years old, I lost my mom, and for a few years, it was just me and my father. He was my everything, my mom, my dad, my best friend, and my idol. During those years, we ate a lot of McDonald's because my dad couldn't cook,
and there was nothing that brought a bigger smile to my face than a Happy Meal. We had a lot of adventures, and we figured out life in a new country. From a very early age, I witnessed Papi's incredible work ethic. He would work a full day in the hospital and pick me up from daycare, as we had no one in Boston but each other. My dad embodied everything I strive to be in life: a loving husband, incredible father, and dedicated physician. Papi was my best friend and mentor, and I'm happy I got to support my father through his illness the way he supported me throughout my life. My dad always dreamed of having a daughter, and when I was born, I made that dream a reality. As he told me, I was his dream girl. I was his Danielita. Growing up, my dad wasn't like the other dads. He spoke differently. He wasn't obsessed with watching sports or hanging out with friends. My dad worked very hard, and he spent time with his family. Those two things were the only things that mattered to him. My dad's zest for life was unparalleled and contagious. His work ethic and passion were unrivaled. His sheer brilliance is something I pray my children will inherit. My dad embodied the adage, work hard, play hard. He traveled quite a bit throughout his career, and whenever possible, he would tack on a vacation to a work trip that happened to be in an exotic or interesting location. But the vacation always had to be after the work, because he didn't want work hanging over him while he was on vacation. When my parents inherited my grandparents' apartment in Florida, there was nothing my dad loved more than having his morning coffee on the deck while looking out at the ocean, and later in the day enjoying a sunset cocktail after the jacuzzi and a nap, of course. You could feel how happy he was on days when there was no wind or waves and a crystal blue sky, and equally how angry he was when the wind was blowing so strong that it was intolerable to sit outside. My dad loved to repeat his favorite stories, including, but not limited to, that I was the sweetest girl until puberty hit and I had a hormonal attack. I know he'll be watching from above in a few years when my daughter is sure to give me payback. When we went on safari for his 50th birthday, our first day on safari, we interrupted a lion and lioness mating. The male lion lunged at our Jeep like the MGM lion, my dad would say. I immediately started crying and insisting I wanted to go home. When my best friend Marissa went to his office and asked, "Where is Yossi?" as his coworkers only knew him as Joe, they didn't know who she was referring to. When I took my family to the Jeff Koons exhibit in New York City, and after 20 minutes when my dad saw the vacuum as art, he stormed out announcing that this was an insult to his intelligence. That he would have to use a stepladder to dance with me at my wedding because I was going to be so tall and wear heels. Although I said before my dad wasn't like other dads with regards to sports, as we grew up playing and watching American sports, my dad began to watch the Boston sports teams and Michigan. I'm still not convinced he fully knew the rules. We were never big hockey or golf fans, but when I met my husband, my dad wanted to be able to discuss my husband's favorite sports with him. So my dad started watching hockey and golf on his own. He told my husband, "I watched golf and I don't understand. Sometimes they hit the ball far and sometimes they hit it short." That was my dad. He wanted to be able to connect with people where they are. The relationship and love my dad and my husband had for one another is something I'm so grateful for. My dad actually loved my husband so much, we joked he'd become the preferred child above all his actual children. My dad never missed an opportunity to celebrate a birthday, anniversary, or life event. He was always present for the good times and the tough times. He made it a priority to be in New York City every year for my birthday. And when I went into preterm labor at 31 weeks with my daughter, my husband wouldn't let me tell my dad because he knew he would get in the car in the middle of the night and drive to New York City. And that is just what my dad did, although I made him promise to wait until the morning. And he checked in on me every day while I was on bed rest for the next 7 weeks. I'm eternally grateful that my dad was able to be there when I gave birth to my daughter 9 months ago. I know it brought him so much joy to see me as a mom, and it brought me so much joy to see him with my daughter. I know the hardest part of losing my dad is that my daughter won't know her Papa Yossi. I promise you, Papi, I'll make sure she knows you, because you were one of a kind, a legend, and the best father a girl could ask for. The past few weeks, I've been listening to the same song on repeat, The Leader of the Band by Dan Fogelberg, and the lyrics really embodied how I was feeling about my dad. I'm not gonna sing. The leader of the band is tired, and his eyes are growing old. But his blood runs through my instrument, and his song is in my soul. My life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. I'm just a living legacy to the leader of the band. Pappy, you are the leader of our band. You'll be terribly missed, but I promise to keep your legacy alive each and every day.
I am Ari. I am the PC. So just so everybody, it's clear.
Child.
The other day I came across a video of a natural phenomenon called a Prince Rupert's drop. It's created by dropping molten glass into frigid cold water. What forms is a tear-like shape with a solid glass bulb and a long, thin tail, and it has some really fascinating properties that I think really embody my dad. The dropping of the molten glass into cold water is much like being born to two Holocaust survivors who fled Europe to start a new life in Argentina. When the glass solidifies, it hardens and becomes a super strong structure capable of resisting hammer strikes and even bullets. This superstructure completed high school at 15, medical school by 23, and was able to move to a new country twice and complete residency and fellowships in a second and third language. He suffered the worst tragedy imaginable, losing his wife and mother to their young son. But like the Prince Rupert's drop, my father is tougher and stronger than meets the eye. He overcame personal tragedy and turned his energy into his career and family, both of which he succeeded at the highest levels. My dad was not only strong for himself, but was a rock of support for me. When we found out we were pregnant with twins, we were shocked, scared, and nervous. On our way home from the appointment, we stopped at my parents' house to tell them the news. My dad could see the emotions welling in me, and he simply gave me a big hug and told me that everything's going to be okay. And we could do this, and they would be there for us no matter what. He's always the person that's been in my life, who grounds and believes in me. While being tough, he could also be stubborn, a common Biederman trait. So stubborn that he put his foot down that he would not wear a tuxedo at my wedding. He called me about a month before the wedding, and he said, "Ari, you know what, I thought about it, and I couldn't think of a single reason why I shouldn't wear a tux at your wedding, and I'm gonna wear one." I felt like I had a unique ability in our family to talk to him, reason with him, and show him a different viewpoint, even when he had dug in his Prince Rupert tough heels. My dad, later in life, had become a passionate sports fan. We attended Celtics, Red Sox, and Patriots games together. He had come a long way from being at my Little League games, wondering what the hell the person was talking about, as they yelled "good eye" to their sons, to hardly missing a local sports broadcast. Looking back, his passion for sports was really a passion for family. It was a way for him to spend more time with all of us. He taught me the importance of family, work ethic, integrity, and empathy. And those that he loved with all his heart and would do anything and everything for at the drop of a hat. Those that he didn't love, well, that was clear also. Even for being incredibly strong and resilient, like the Prince Rupert drop, he was not invincible. If the tail of the drop is even slightly damaged, it exhibits almost an explosive disintegration. Despite being an amazing person who has accomplished so much, his tail was damaged, and he unexpectedly, and he was gone too fast and too soon. It'll be my mission to try to live a life that would make my dad proud and be the wonderful husband and father that he taught me to be. I'll ensure that my 3 children and know their grandfather and what an unbelievable person he was.
Well, I'm going to try and speak, and I'm speaking to Yossi, actually, because he would be so proud of his children, all five of them. Everybody hung together during this incredibly difficult time and supported one another. And that was incredibly important, and I know it would have been important to him. I appreciate all of you coming today and being here with us. You all meant a lot to him. Thank you.
Thank you for those beautiful words. Our next speaker will be Dr. Janet Wozniak.
It's such an honor to be here, to speak, to be with his family and friends and everyone who loved him so much. Joe Biederman was a celebrity in my work world of child psychiatry. If there was a People magazine of psychiatry, he would have been on the cover every week. In 1992, he offered me a job. It had no salary, no office, no computer, no staff support. But there was a promise, a fulfilled promise of joining forces as he built what was an empire, the Roman Empire of research. In those early days, it was Joe, his wonder boys, Tim Willens and Tom Spencer, and then me, a fourth musketeer, and it was a burgeoning Biederland universe, it was called. It was an amazing opportunity. You see, Dr. Biederman was not an ordinary research scientist who just put another brick in the wall of science. He was a paradigm shifter. He was like the guy who said, the earth is not flat. He replaced baseless, harmful clinical beliefs like mothers are to blame for their children's psychiatric illness with facts and scientific evidence. He said, as a clinician, I can help individuals one at a time. With research, we help many. And of course, I joined him. Joe addressed his patients' real problems with prolific, robust research, too much to recount to you. And he was the most clinically active psychiatrist in our entire department at Mass General. He cared for hundreds of patients, many of whom were not helped by our state-of-the-art of psychiatry, which is often feeble. Regarding one child who had just a horrifying psychiatric mental illness, I said to him, Joe, nothing you have prescribed has worked. Do you think another clinician might have new insights? And he said, what other clinician? Who will take this case, and what could they possibly offer that I haven't considered? He did what any of us would want from our doctor. He stuck with his patients, offering hope. His patients rightly adored him. None of us could ever fulfill the expectations for clinical care, teaching, and research that Joe set and met for himself. But those of us junior to him, me and Joshi, Mai, Attila, Craig Sermon, too many others to name, all here today, Maura and Steve, too many. We all aimed for the high bar, because to see his pleasure in our accomplishment was awesome. Akali once took me aside and asked me for the secret. How does Joe do it? How is he so productive and successful? I worked with Joe, but what could I say? I was so pained to see Joe's illness dampen his fire, but even at half strength, he was a dynamo. I admired most Joe's ability to call out bullshit. I can hear it. I can hear his voice. I can't say it. He had groupies, fan doctors who attended his lectures repeatedly. And like me, they'd love it when he got a biased or an antiquated or pompous question from the audience and retort, this question is not worthy of a response. Next. He inspired admiration and devotion, but as you might imagine, he was an iconoclast, and he also engendered hostility from small minds threatened by his research. I was often intimidated, but Joe was never daunted. He did not suffer fools. He could yell in emails, writing in large font capital letters. He wisely enlisted Yvonne and Maribel, his beloved administrative managers, to temper his limbic emotional responses, but he made sure they did not remove all the bark and bite from the communications to the many officious fools who were impeding progress. I'm going to miss his reprimands to others and to me. He'd be appalled that I'm speaking to you today without any slides or data. Janet, he'd admonish. When you speak, do not be apologetic. Don't diminish your message. Don't give credence to idiocy. You know what's right. Say it. Think what I would say, he urged me. And all those many, many times I heard that, I never thought I would lose the opportunity to ask him what to say, how to say, whether I got it right. Recent messages about Joe from colleagues, local and afar, have had a theme that I share. We never thought of Joe as mortal. Any obstacle in his path, he'd vanquish. I was sure he'd trounce death, too. I love this note from a doctor in Spain. She wrote, "We love to imagine that the giants and the stars like Joe never die. We believe they will always be there to encourage and protect us." After 30 years at his elbow under his protection, I can say unequivocally that I know Joseph Biederman, the master clinician, the brilliant researcher, the compelling teacher. None of us are a Joe Biederman. He was one of a kind. He was human in his love for his patients, his colleagues, for all of us, but larger than life, legendary. I say this with certainty, unqualified, and like he taught me, without apology. Joe, I will carry your torch as best as I am able. Did I do okay?
Thank you for those beautiful words. Our final speaker is Dr. Pablo Gomeri.
I loved, respected, and admired Yossi Biederman. I still do. To me, he was never Joe, never your average Joe Sixpack. Yossi was a warrior. Life set challenges in front of him, and he not only welcomed them, but he confronted them head on. Yossi graduated medical school in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and subsequently emigrated to Israel with his wife Sylvia to do his psychiatric residency at Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Not an easy undertaking. Later, with Sylvia and toddler Itai, he emigrated for a second time to the United States to find medical therapy for his wife's illness. He was accepted to the fellowship program in child psychiatry at Boston Children's Hospital and subsequently joined the staff at Mass General Hospital Department of Psychiatry, but Sylvia passed. There he was in the throes of a grueling training program, mourning his late wife and alone with a little child to nurture. I met him at that point and immediately bonded as physicians, Jews, children of the Holocaust, foreigners, and Spanish speakers. I often wondered how he was able to keep it all together through that critical period. I loved Yossi's unique combination of warmth, humor, generosity, and stubbornness. I never stopped feeling amazed at the strength of his character. I would see Yossi biking around Coolidge Corner in Brookline with Itai sitting in the back seat, and it would bring tears to my eyes. Yossi taught me that good things happen to those who doggedly persist with resilience and resolve. He met Helen, they fell in love, they married, and soon their family of 3 became a family of 5. Itai, Daniela, and Ari, you were the biggest treasure of his life. Our wives were pregnant at the same time, and all 4 of us became close friends. We had great times as we celebrated holidays, ski vacations, and apple-picking day trips as an extended family. We shared yearly Rosh Hashanah dinners and Passover seders in Spanish, English, and Hebrew. A big shout out to Helen's magnificent command of Spanish. Together we created a world that reflected the fullness of our life stories and that instilled in our children a complicated and celebratory understanding of where they came from. Among Yossi's many legacies, this is one that I, my wife, and my children all cherish. When he began his career as a child psychiatrist, Yossi was determined to do it as a strict academician. He wanted to change child psychiatry into an evidence-based science. He had wonderful, big heart supporters in Helen's parents, Franca and Alan, as they helped him get started in the difficult world of academic medicine. As is often said, behind every great man, there's a surprise mother-in-law. Yossi revolutionized the field with pioneering research and seminal contributions. We often jogged at 5 a.m., and he would regale me with his ambitious project to create a whole new world of child psychiatry. He achieved it, as evidenced by the numerous accolades and awards he received over the decades. At his pinnacle, another major challenge arose as he faced 5 years of a grueling investigation, which had an enormous emotional impact. However, he stuck to his values and beliefs. Mass General Hospital stood firmly by his side, and he won the battle. As I recall his accounts of the sleepless nights and the bitter taste of it all, a quote by Sir Winston Churchill comes to mind. "You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life." As far as Yossi was concerned, he felt strongly that he was taking care of the worst possible cases of childhood psychiatric illness, trying to restore a bit of inner peace, stability, and support to the children and their families. As mental illness becomes increasingly understood in the public domain, we can all relate to that need. I would often ask Yossi, how do you get through all these crises? And I would only get the perfunctory, warrior-like answer, you do what you gotta do. In these final months, as his disease advanced, Yossi continued to stand warrior tall. Even at the very end, he would always ask me the simple scientific question, what is my outcome here? Life injects tidbits of irony, as at the end, Yossi was still able to watch Argentina fight its way to the finals of the World Soccer Cup. The Argentinians were as tenacious in spirit as I knew Yossi to be. They defeated France in Yossi's final days, after he was no longer conscious. I wish I could tell him about it, but I know that he knew they had already won, because Yossi embodied the belief that as long as we try,
persist, and believe in ourselves, our lives are full of meaning. I will always remember him for this. I will sorely miss him.
Thank you for those beautiful words. There's a line that we say every day in the Aleinu prayer at the end of our services. Takein olam b'malchut Shaddai. My favorite translation of that line is, to heal the world, you must feel the world. To put back together the world's brokenness, you have to be in all of its pain and know exactly the force it takes to repair it. That was the energy that directed Yossi's life. Leon, you shared so beautifully that as children, you would go to the doctor's office in Argentina, and that doctor's office was in an apartment building, and Yossi saw the clean white coat, he saw the peace, he saw the calm, he saw the way that your childhood pediatrician could support and help and heal, and it was in that moment that he dedicated his life towards healing. He didn't turn away, not when it was difficult, not when he had to take 3 boards back to back, not when he had to learn languages or transform his practice or figure out new ways or fight against people who wanted to put him down and keep him in the traditional way of medicine. Even when a patient attacked him early in his residency, that only made his resolve more firm. He knew that he had an important role to do in the world and dedicated himself fiercely, not just to healing, but to training and to extending that training. Aviva, when you began medical school, he passed down literal bones, the bones that he had used in his training. And those bones were kind of the way he worked. He acquired wisdom and acquired knowledge and acquired tools, and then made sure to distribute them and to disperse them to make sure they would be as effective as possible. His work was not just about healing, but about empowering healers. There are so many people that we see in the world who are phenomenal professionals, phenomenal doctors, phenomenal caretakers, but when it comes to their time at home, they don't have the energy to be fully present. But that wasn't Yossi. He was fully present at work, and he was fully present at home. Daniela, you shared so beautifully that when you went to sweepaway camp, he didn't just send you letters, he sent you daily letters to make sure that you knew that you were loved, that he saw you. His practice at the end of every day, every long day of work at Mass General, he would drive home and he would call every child. He would call Ari and Daniela and Itai and Yael. He would call you and check in, and his question was, how are you? How are you doing? Any headaches today? And you knew that telling him about a headache had its risks, because if you told him about a headache, he took that headache on, he felt that pain in his own body, and he would keep calling to check in on you, to see how you were doing, to see how he could help. He couldn't just sit there and know someone was in pain. He needed to do whatever he could do to solve that pain. He supported you all so much in whatever work you wanted to do. Helen, when you decided you wanted to join the school board, he was 100% supportive. Even if he didn't want to always go to every function, he wanted you to do exactly what was your dream. He would always say, whenever asked, I love you just the way you are. You are perfect. And his love for you became a model for you, Daniela and Ari and Itai, as you went out into the world of what love means, of what it means to be a true partner. And as you went out to the world, you looked for someone like your dad, someone who could be present. And of course, Helen, you returned that love and that presence at every turn. You showed up in a powerful way early on in his life when Itai had just been injured and was in the hospital, and you brought a Batman jigsaw puzzle and a casserole, which showed two things. One, you really could see and regard Itai and his needs, but also food was essential. And you took care of him in every moment through all the turns of life. You were the yin to his yang, the yang to his yin. You balanced each other out. And where he had great ambitions and saw the way forward, you had the practical know-how of how to get there, sometimes even literally when it came to GPS. Even though that sometimes created fights, you knew exactly which turns you needed to make in order to make it to your destination. Thank goodness, because without you, there were times you would not have made it. He loved to enjoy life. He wasn't just serious. He had this sense about life's blessings that meant you had to stop to enjoy them. He really relished a delicious meal at a restaurant, a beautiful vacation, and not just the experience. He wanted to share that. It wasn't enough to go to these incredible destinations. He would spend years planning your vacations, planning trips, and thinking about who should be on the bus. Daniela, you shared that even when Seth joined the family, you'd been dating only a little bit when he insisted that Seth join you on a trip because he wanted to make sure everyone would be along for the ride. He loved the world. He loved living. He loved the fullness of life. And he had this special ability to never get bogged down in what was missing. That sometimes meant that if he literally lost something, he would just order it again rather than look for it, because he wouldn't even want to invest the physical energy in what wasn't in his life. That means that Seth, you now have his 10th Kindle, because every time he lost one, he would just order again and again and again. He carried a 50-pound backpack, literally 50-pound backpack, because he wanted to be sure he was prepared for any moment, for any eventuality. And he didn't just relish being prepared for those moments, planning for those moments, enjoying those moments. He also savored the practice of creating memory books, of creating picture books where he would secret away all of those family photos. Now, again, he didn't spend a lot of time on it. He didn't focus a lot. He would just throw all the pictures in a book. But he loved making those books, and they needed to be made quickly so that you could not just enjoy the vacation while you were there, but really relish the trip afterwards and go back through those memories. Yossi was a visionary. He was a visionary of love and of light. He showed us. He didn't just do it. He showed us. He taught us what it means to feel the pain of the world and to let that feeling flow through you, to let that feeling not overwhelm you, and instead to transform that feeling into determination, into resilience, into dedication. All of us in this room, we are students of Yossi, students of Joe, students of JB. We all studied at his feet, wanting to learn the magic of what he had downloaded from Shemayim, of the work of his heart. We are brokenhearted that God has called him to be with God, but in this moment, we are also determined. We are also determined to step forward as his living legacy, to continue his work of healing, to continue his work of love, to continue his work of savoring and enjoying every moment, and to making sure that whatever happens in our life, we use it as fuel for the good of all who come after us. Please rise for the memorial prayer.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים אמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים
אזור רקיע מזהירים את נשמת יוסף בן מאיר בחנה, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתו עליו על הרחמים. אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בתורך החיים את נשמתו. אדוני ונחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the holy and pure soul of Joseph, Joe, Yossi, JB, Dr. Biederman, Papi Yossi, who has gone on now to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you to remember all of the worthy and extraordinary and resilient and transforming and warrior-like deeds that he did here in the land of the living. May his soul thus be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. God is his portion. May he rest now and always at peace. And may we not be at peace because we have got big shoes to fill. And for this we say, Amen.
Pallbearers, please.